Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, I want to share with you the best iconic abilities in Final Fantasy XVI. Now, I think most of the skills in the game are fairly usable. I've definitely messed around with a great many and had a lot of fun doing so. That being said, through experimentation comes information, and as such, these 7 skills I'm about to share with you, I think are the best ones. I'm even going to throw in an honorary mention of one I don't think is the best, but it is my personal favorite. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 7 on my list is Dancing Steel. This is Odin's ultimate ability, and upon landing the initial hit, it will freeze time all around you as you constantly combo and build up Odin's Zentetsuken gauge. Now bear in mind this is only number 7 in my opinion if you actually plan on taking Odin and trying to pull off level 5 Zentetsukens. Advantage number 1 of the skill is that you can generate almost an entire Zentetsuken gauge. In fact, even without any assistance accessories granting you more gauge, using certain combos can ensure you get to level 5 Zentetsuken on a single use. And given that Zentetsuken is one of the most powerful iconic feats, or the Arm of Darkness that lets you use it at the very least, that makes this skill really strong. However, it's not the only reason that it's number 7. Like I said, this skill also freezes time, and that also freezes the stagger gauge. Your cooldowns will keep ticking, the stagger gauge will stand still, and you can generate a Zentetsuken, allowing you to greatly extend your combos and increase the amount of damage you do in a stagger. It can be a little frustrating to use if you don't set it up, as if you get hit during the windup, it will just give up. And then sometimes even upon landing the hit, if an enemy hops back or kind of shakes you aside a little bit, it can also cancel the skill. Set it up carefully and you will be Zentetsuking everything to death with no problems and extending those stagger damage combos. Number 6 is going to be Heatwave, one of the many counters in the game, but this one is one of the first. Heatwave is your projectile dispelling skill under the Phoenix tree, and honestly, it is my favorite counter in the game. Now, I think a lot of the other counters have, I guess, a little bit more application, but every time there's a projectile from a boss or a random enemy and I don't have Heatwave equipped, it just feels like I'm missing something in my kit. And Heatwave is so incredibly powerful. When you successfully dispel the projectile, you fire double the amount of hits. They do significant base damage and significant damage to the stagger bar. Not to mention that using the skill on its own is not too shabby either. You can use it as a launcher on smaller enemies, and you can just follow up on bosses that are staggered or anything just to add a little bit more damage. So I find the skill incredibly powerful, and it's so hard for me not to have it. Number 5 is going to be Gigaflare. This is Bahamut's ultimate skill, and it is a shoop de whoop, firing my laser. Yeah, that's all it really is, a giant laser that does a ton of damage, but it does do a ton of damage. Now, I think it needs to be comboed with other skills in order to really take off. That being said, it also slows down time, much like number 7 in Dancing Steel. That, of course, extends the stagger, and the amount of damage you get from a single cast is absolutely massive. It is really hard to not bring this once you've used it a single time, especially when combined with one of our later skills on this list. You might like it, you might not, but I'm putting it at number 5. Now, number 4 is going to be Rift Slip. Now, I had a hard time deciding if I wanted this on the list or not, because arguably it is one of the most powerful skills, but it is not powerful for everybody. It definitely requires a deeper understanding of what you can do with the opportunities it affords you. Rift Slip is the counter skill of the Odin tree, and it allows you to interrupt any ability or attack, including your basic 1, 2, 3, 4 ground combo if you really wanted to. It'll slow time for a couple of seconds, completely reset your animation, and when you successfully use it this way, the cooldown is super short. Now, it slows time, which means, once again, it delays the stagger bar. So if you're getting these a lot in the middle of an encounter, you can actually extend the stagger bar, but that's not even everything it can be used for. You can use it for mid-air resets. You can use it to cancel out of animations that are too dangerous that you've already committed to. You can just use it in the middle of your basic combo if you see an attack that you don't want to deal with, and you're like, let me just move move out of the way after I slow down time. The big thing though is that for really high skill players, the combo reset potential is absolutely massive on it. I have acknowledged its power. I have not utilized it very much, so I don't have that much footage of it, but I can already see the potential in this skill. So it's definitely getting a number 4. Now, I personally feel, and I have vetted this with other people who have finished the game, that my top 3 are indisputable in terms of objective power. Number 3 is Diamond Dust. I am so mad I didn't use this skill until New Game Plus, but hey, I'm using it now. Diamond Dust is Shiva's ultimate skill. It'll freeze the enemies around you for a second before landing a double hit. The first hit does a massive amount of will damage, and the second follow-up hit also does a decent amount, but is really just a few extra hits on the end. Now, the big thing with Diamond Dust is just how much stagger damage it does. It has a 5-star rating in that, and it actually teaches you an important lesson about the stagger gauge as a whole. You see, you could use this to almost single-handedly wipe out 50% of an enemy's stagger bar, and that's great on its own. However, once an enemy has been staggered, you actually increase the multiplier by dealing more will damage. We originally thought from the demo that it was number of hits or some combination of number of hits and damage. No, it is the amount of will damage you deal, so anything that does a lot of will damage will increase the stagger very quickly. Diamond Dust is so powerful, it instantly takes the enemy to a 1.5 times multiplier. You will hit the maximum stagger damage instantly, and it freezes time while you're using it. So the stagger gauge won't even start ticking down while you're doing this. Plus the initial damage can't be met. It's just, I have so many words for it that it's so insanely strong. Trust me, once you start using it, you will find it hard to stop using Diamond Dust. Now, my number 1 and number 2, I think, are interchangeably the strongest skills. I think you could honestly put either one at 1 or 2, but my order is going to be as follows. My number 2 most powerful skill is Will-o'-the-Wisps, another early game skill. It's the one you obtain once you have access to Ifrit. Now, this will put a couple of orbs around you, which actually absorb hits from enemies, but also if you're standing close to an enemy, will hit them over and over again. Now, I shouldn't need to explain to you why being immune to damage is a great thing. There are a couple attacks in the game that go through this, Maelstrom from the Behemoths, for example, and a couple of counterattacks like the Garuda aerial blast when you're in Clive form and not Ifrit. But for the most part, you can become a reckless machine with this thing on. If you have trouble parrying, using that extra security of those hits can allow you to practice that. If there's an attack that you always get hit by from a boss, you can apply that. Not to mention the sheer number of hits that it applies will chip away at the stagger gauge non-stop. It's just such a powerful skill, and when it's upgraded, you can take twice the amount of hits. I think it's 4 hits before you actually start taking damage again. Not to mention, there's an accessory that extends its duration, plus we have all these other time-stopping skills which can draw out the duration even further. So you just have so much ability to just be completely immune to damage because of this skill. So it's crazy to think I'm even putting it at number 2 with all of that in mind. So what is number 1? What could I possibly put over being nigh on invincible for most of the time, as long as you don't take too many hits? I think the number 1 skill in Final Fantasy 16 is Lightning Rod. Yeah, Ramuh's counterattack skill, Lightning Rod. You just drop a Lightning Rod on the ground, and if you hit it, it pulses an AoE. If the enemy hits it, it pulses an even stronger AoE. That sounds great. You can even move it around in case you didn't know. If you press the button again, it'll move it to wherever your new location is. But the big thing is, how many hits can that Lightning Rod take before it goes away? Well, it sticks around for like 30 to 40 seconds on its own, but it can also take 30 entire hits before it actually goes away otherwise. So if you just hit it 30 extra times while it's sitting on an enemy, that's 30 procs of damage on the enemy. You know what's a great skill for hitting something repeatedly over and over again? That's right. Will-o'-the-Wisps. One of the most common combinations that you're going to see from people is literally dropping the lightning rod right on top of yourself with Will-o'-the-Wisps and watching it just go haywire. That's not even my favorite way to use it, though. You can also use it for a ton of other things. Number 7, Dancing Steel on this list. Did you know that you can hit the lightning rod during Dancing Steel and it will help generate more Zentetsuken? Now, you don't need that if you have some late game, new game plus accessories, but the fact that you can do that with no accessories and get to that level 5 Zentetsuken can make it even better. On top of that, when I first got Gigaflare, every single boss drop the lightning rod, Gigaflare the boss on the lightning rod, and the health bars just go. It is insane how powerful the lightning rod is, how much it assists your other damage, and in the case of Will-o'-the-Wisps' defensive tools, not to mention, if you're limit broken, then those big pulses, even those will do more damage. And if an enemy hits you in the process, if you just use it casually and an enemy hits it and they just damage themselves, great. It just has, it's very good, okay? Before I nerd out too much, lightning rod, I think, is the strongest skill in the game, and I hope that never changes. Now, I do want to give an honorable mention to a personal favorite. It's not my actual number 1, but it is a skill that has stayed with me, and I have such a hard time taking it off my bar. And that is Wicked Wheel from the Garuda tree. Now, Wicked Wheel is, as most people experience from the demo, you know, you do a little wind-up whirlwind attack that hits multiple times. It does a large amount of will damage, and you can use it in the air. You can extend aerial combos with it. You can use it to get into the air initially. It has a lot of very direct applications. It's not a complicated skill. However, for the very short animation that it has, it does an insane amount of will damage, and its relatively short cooldown, which you can shorten further with an accessory, makes it so it's something you can frequently use to damage the enemy's stagger gauge throughout a longer encounter. Not to mention, it's just great on random elites and whatnot. It's the skill I like to use to deal stagger damage in order to set up my big stagger combo. And if I can get it in the stagger combo towards the end, great, but it's not part of that. It is my general use stagger builder. Not to mention, I love doing aerial combos. It's just something that I find to be a lot of fun, and this helps me have that fun. Besides, I know some people might be thinking, what about Gouge? Gouge for me is too much of a commitment in terms of how many animations, how many swings, how much time it takes to execute, that I'd rather have something like this that has more general use applications, in my opinion. So that's my honorable mention and my personal most used skill in Final Fantasy 16. Now, in case you're wondering about the iconic feats, I am going to be doing a separate video ranking those, although most people seem to know which ones are the best and which ones aren't. But I did have an interesting discussion with some members from my community earlier about some of the middle pieces, about the preference of certain ones. So that's going to be a video all on its own. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Give those skills a try. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care.